Welcome to the MNCPPC Department of Parks and Recreation's Virtual Healthy Holiday Nutrition Series. Whether you are here for a workshop or a cooking demonstration, get ready to experience a fun, interactive, and educational session. This evening, you will get nutritional tools and cooking tips for you and your family on how to enjoy the holiday season while maintaining your wellness goals.
Good evening. Welcome and thank you for joining us to this virtual nutrition workshop. My name is Juliet Demeray and I'm a health and wellness specialist with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen, like you see here on this screen. You will need to click this icon to mute yourself. We ask that you remain muted to limit any distractions during the program. Next, I want to draw your attention to the camera icon. You will use this to turn your camera off and on. Please be mindful that when your camera is on, all participants joining us this evening will be able to see your screen. You have the option to keep your camera on or turn it off, but remember we want to minimize distractions throughout the program and keep the focus on the presentation being provided. Next, the chat icon is here. This will allow you to ask questions throughout the program. To type a question, you'll just click on the icon like you see on the screen to bring up the chat box, and it should take you to what you see next. So here is the chat box. Once you see it, just like on the screen here, there will be a space for you to type your questions in. Hit enter and we will see your questions on the screen. Please ask your questions or share comments throughout the program. We look forward to a great discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our trained professional for the evening. Melanie Burdick is a registered dietitian, licensed dietitian nutritionist, certified diabetes care and education specialist, certified specialist in obesity and weight management, and a certified personal trainer. She holds a bachelor's degree in dietetics from Eastern Michigan University and a master's of science in applied nutrition from the University of New England. She believes in practical steps to improving health and wellness where no foods are off limits. Welcome, Melanie.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate everyone participating in tonight's presentation. I'm just going to take a second here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. So that way we can get started. All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. So yes, I am Melanie Burdick and I am a registered dietitian and I'm part of the nutritionist team at Giant Food. And at the end of today's presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the services that we offer. So I'm actually a Baltimore-based nutritionist, and I actually cover the western side of the Baltimore region into Howard and Montgomery County. So that's where I'm located in Maryland. And so today we're going, can you believe, first off, it is November and we're talking about the holidays. Just a few weeks ago, it was 80 degrees. So things have definitely changed and we're starting to get into that holiday mindset. So for today, we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use for a healthier holiday season. So we'll talk about some strategies to help you get through the holidays and some wonderful things that you can put into your cart to help you keep on those wellness goals. So for our agenda today, we'll break it into three different parts. So we'll first set foot into the office, our virtual office, so to speak, and we'll talk about the general holiday eating mentality. I know many of us, we get a little nervous about those holidays coming around, and so we'll kind of walk through some of the typical beliefs and how to work through that. And then we'll change gears and we'll set foot into the aisles and we'll talk about some wonderful healthy items that you can add to your cart to make this year tasty yet better for you. And then finally, we will finish up with how to make the most of your holiday meal at home and in the kitchen, and if you're doing any entertaining this holiday. All right. Perfect. At any time, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chart. I've got my team here that will definitely pay attention to any of the chat box chatter, and we can answer any questions during today's chat, or we can spend some time at the end as well. So let's get set in that. Let's set foot into that virtual office, so to speak. So let's talk about that holiday eating mentality. You know, we all know during that holiday season, there's going to be some ooey gooey things available. And With the holiday season, there's that feel-good factor. Just think about those items that we only have once a year or that are sort of sentimental, so to speak. Just thinking about my holiday favorites, I think about dishes that my grandma made, and those are always a part of that holiday meal and that get-together. And some of those recipes may not be the healthiest, so they're definitely a treat. Now, also during the holidays, you might have felt pressure in the past that you didn't want to be rude when it came to, some of the items that are brought to pass at a dinner. Maybe a relative really wanted you to try some pie or a recipe they made, and you really weren't crazy about it, but you didn't want to be rude, right, or hurt their feelings. So you might have tried foods that you really weren't crazy about. And then there's also that thought process too when we think about the holidays of, what, I can go crazy. Tomorrow, my diet will start. And what we really want to think about during that holiday season is that there's only a handful of holidays, not weeks. So definitely we can still enjoy ourselves without going overboard. And that way we don't go from one extreme of eating to the other. We have that balance during that holiday season. But I'm sure we've all experienced that. I have as well. So also, let's talk about some of the things that we might hear frequently when it comes to holiday eating. Typically, we hear about holiday weight gain. And so often we might hear as an excessive amount of weight during this holiday period. Sometimes you might have read on social media or heard online, people might gain 8 to 10 or more pounds, but really in actuality, it's only a small amount of weight. It's about 1 to 2 pounds over that holiday season. But here's one thing to really think about. It's only 1 or 2 pounds, pretty slight, right? But most of the time, individuals that have a gradual amount of weight loss during the holiday season don't lose that weight the next year. So then think about it as you slowly, gradually have that weight gain over many years or decades. That's 5 or 10 pounds, over the course of a decade. Multiply that by several years. That increases our risk for other diseases related to weight gain, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, or high cholesterol. And so we really do want to be mindful about that. Now, think about your average holiday meal. Think about all of the goodies at your Thanksgiving, Christmas, or other holiday tables or parties. The average caloric intake for these meals can range from 3,000 to 4,000 calories. Now, this is just kind of a rough estimate. It could be more or less depending on those wonderful ingredients that are in those recipes. So think about your favorite serving of mashed potatoes or stuffing or pecan pie. They can have 5, 6, 7, 800 calories. So it quickly adds up. And one thing I always think about during the holidays is how easy it is to eat these calories and how long it takes to actually burn them off. To burn 3,000 calories, that would be you walking miles and miles and miles and hours of exercise to burn that off. So that can be one thing to keep in the back of your mind. How long will it take me to burn off this meal? All right. So another thing that we really do encourage individuals during this holiday time frame, really from Halloween all the way through New Year's, is what we don't want to do is go on some sort of diet or restrict ourselves. We want to focus right now on weight maintenance. Let's not make any huge goals right now for significant weight loss. If that's something that we're really focused on. Right now, we want to give ourselves a little bit of grace and make it a little bit easier during this time, because we know that that's going to help us feel not restricted, but help us not go overboard at the same time. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's only a handful of holidays versus weeks. So think about those special holidays that are really important to you and focus on those as maybe your treat days, and then those other days between holidays as those regular eating days. And then we also want to think about not forgetting our exercise routine during these busy months. Many of us might be shopping or getting ready to entertain, but we do want to make sure that we add in some healthy exercise goals during this time frame. And we want to make it realistic as well. What's going to work for your schedule right now through the end of the year? And don't make a New Year's resolution to start a diet. That really can cause a lot of stress, and that can bring on that feeling of restriction at the new year. So think about how to be easier on yourself during this time frame. All right, some other things to really think about. Holiday eating strategies. How are we going to get through this time frame? So we want to make sure, one, that we keep our routine as much as possible. So that's our eating, our exercise routine, our sleeping habit, you name it. And we really want to be careful, maybe when we're doing a little bit of baking or cooking, that we're watching out for those sneaky calories. A nibble here, a bite here, they can add up pretty quickly. And really also don't feel, that shame of that holiday spiral that can happen. You might feel that we went overboard one day, so it ruins all of our hard work. Don't shame yourself. You're human. Enjoy yourself. But then tomorrow is a new day. And then one other thing that you want to think about during the holiday season is really slowing down, savoring those flavors of the holidays. Think of all the wonderful ingredients that we only use a handful of times. Pumpkin pie spice, allspice, cinnamon, nutmeg. And really, when you think about these meals, slow down and savor all those different ingredients and flavors in the meal. And that can be very satisfying as well. All right, now I know some things have changed over the last year. We've had a little bit of a halt with those holiday celebrations due to COVID, but maybe some people might be having some small get-togethers as the holiday season goes on. And so a couple of things that can be really helpful if you're going to a holiday get-together, or maybe it's a group party or a family get-together. Really what you want to think about is focus on the camaraderie and the togetherness of the party rather than the food itself. A lot of us might go to parties because we know there's going to be really good food, but maybe this year it's focusing on all of the people there, people you haven't seen, and catching up. And it's okay if someone does offer you a food that you're not really crazy about. It's okay to just say no. That's fine. It's okay to pass and say, you know what, no thank you, Aunt Sue, but maybe I'll take some home instead. And then really, if there is a spread of food available at your get-together, take a look at everything. Survey the landscape before putting anything on your plate. See what's available and see what's really going to be satisfying for you. Don't feel like you have to put it on your plate because it's on the table. And one thing we'll talk a little bit more as we go through the presentation, we can follow the USDA MyPlate. Now, many of us have probably seen this. It's a nice reminder of what a healthy plate should look like. So we're at a holiday get-together. You can think of making half of your plate produce, fruits and vegetables, a quarter lean protein, and then a quarter whole grains. And then maybe a small amount for dessert. And then other things that we'll talk a little bit more when we get into some of our food selections in the aisles. Think about those drinks, eggnog, wines, other mixed drinks that have additional calories. Could we do some swaps with those and really enjoy the food? And then also one other thing to think about is getting outside. Maybe if you're going over for a holiday get together, maybe instead of, sitting inside and enjoying the appetizers, get everyone out for some flag football or take a walk or hike. That way you can get some activity during your get together. All right. And so one other thing that we think about with the holidays is that we've got that new year that's looming over us. So really, if you're thinking about, okay, it's November, maybe in 2022, I'll start to shift my thought process and focus on some wellness goals. And so one thing that can really be helpful as you start to think about maybe some changes you might make for the new year, really think about shifting your focus from maybe that weight goal to rather a health goal. What things do you want to achieve? Maybe it's more energy or playing with your children, or maybe it's easier to climb the stairs. And I apologize, my dog is in the background. So we want to think about starting where you're at. Have an action plan and start really small. Start the new year off with a small goal rather than a really large one. Maybe instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to start exercising every day, maybe you say, I'm just going to start exercising for 10 minutes at a time or 30 minutes a day to ease into it. And then what we also want to think about are what things can we add to our routine? Can we add in different types of foods or add in different activities? When we think about all the things that we can add to our routine rather than taking away, it really does help lower that stress level. All right, so let's change gears. And I'm just going to stop here. Julia, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do not yet.
All right, perfect. Well, we'll keep pressing on and definitely feel free to holler out if there's anything that pops up in the chat. So let's talk about, we went too far. So let's talk about what we can do this holiday season to still enjoy ourselves, have really good tasty meals on the table, but feel like we're still meeting our wellness goals. And so we have a program at Giant that really can help you as maybe you start to do some more shopping for your holiday season. So we have two programs. We have our Guiding Stars program and our How Good program. Now, each of these have a different focus. So when we're talking about health, you can use the Guiding Stars program. And this makes life really easy when you're shopping, whether it's in store or online. So we know when we're looking at healthful food choices, we might spend a lot of time looking at the nutrition facts label. There's a lot of information on those labels. So what Guiding Stars does, it gives you another tool for your shopping toolbox. So Guiding Stars actually reads the nutrition labels so you don't have to, which is great. So it rates products based on their fiber, their sodium, added ingredients, and it gives credits for products that have more heart-healthy fats and less salt and are more nutritionally dense. So if you're shopping during the season and you're trying to find some great options, look for the Guiding Stars program at Giant. Look for items with 1, 2, or 3 guiding stars like we have here on the screen. So more stars, the better for you and more nutritionally dense. And when you're in the aisles, you can look at that price on the shelf. There's a tag right below that, and it'll have 1, 2, or 3 guiding stars on it. So it's an easy way to find those options. Now, on the other hand, we have another shopping program. It's called How Good. And so this is actually to tell customers about the sustainability of their products and the impact on the environment. So if you're concerned about where your products are coming from, treatment of animals or the impact on the environment, this is a great program. And so you can actually download the How Good app and you can scan your favorite foods and you can learn about where they came from, business practices, manufacturing practices, and see how it impacts the environment. And so like Guiding Stars, it has leaves a rating system of 1, 2, or 3 leaves. So it's pretty easy to find those options that are better for the environment. And so you'll find these right on that shelf tag in the store, right below the price. So it's another great tool. No matter what you're shopping for this holiday season, you can find something that meets your needs. Now, one thing we want to think about when we're thinking about the holiday time is a term that we've sort of coined at Giant, the nutritionist team, and it's what we call a swap-opportunity. You may have seen signage in the store last year, but when you think about a swap-opportunity, think of it as an opportunity to either 1, try a new product in the store or a new variation from your old favorite, or just swap out a product for a healthier option. And really to help improve your health, maybe it's less fat or less sodium, but it still allows for a tasty meal. So today we're going to talk about some of the things you can look for in each of our different food groups and our sections of the store that are a great swap opportunity, but still a great choice for the holidays. Now, when we're thinking about cooking, there's a lot of wonderful recipes that are out there. And I always think in the back of my mind when I'm cooking, my dad used to say, Mel, a recipe is just a suggestion. And so when you're cooking this season, use that as a reminder. If there's an ingredient you're not sure about or you're worried about the health profile, consider swapping it out for something that's a little bit healthier or a little bit leaner. So some great examples that I have here, and we'll talk more in more detail in the next couple of slides on what to look for. Think about those creamy dishes that you might be making, a dip, or mashed potatoes, or something that has milk or sour cream? Could we make a swap for a leaner option? So instead of sour cream for a dish, maybe we could opt for some non-fat plain Greek yogurt. Gives you the creaminess without all the fat. Or if we're making a pumpkin pie, for instance, if the recipe calls for evaporated milk, maybe we could swap that for fat-free evaporated milk. That little switch still ends up being a great tasting pie, but a lot less saturated fat. So those are some little things that you can look for while you're shopping. Other things too, when we're looking at making stuffing or soups, we know that many of those can be higher in sodium. So let's use a broth that's lower in salt. We have a reduced salt chicken broth, or a low sodium one that's even lower in salt, 140 milligrams a serving. And that change alone can really lower that sodium content for the whole meal. So lots of things to look for. Also with beverages, think about finding a lower fat eggnog. Here we have the Khalifa Farms. It's the almond milk. It's a lower fat eggnog version that's quite tasty. Or adding in things like fruit, or even if you're making cranberries, maybe you add a little less sugar to the recipe. And later we'll talk about some options for a healthy beverage. So one of the examples being a seltzer. So think about this year with any of your recipes, what are the swap opportunities that I could do to change this dish? Now, as we're going through this store, the first place we walk into is the produce section. And I love it because it's so pretty and colorful. And all those colors provide us with fabulous nutrients. All those colors have different antioxidants and phytonutrients, and that's beneficial for our body, helps prevent disease and helps fight those free radicals. So one of the things to think about with your holiday meal is, how can I add more vegetables or produce to my meals? And that way I can have more volume. It's going to take up more space on my plate. That'll leave less room for some of those other tasty things that might be on the table. And when we think about produce, fresh, frozen, or canned are all great options. So when you're shopping, you can use all of these in your holiday cooking. So there might be particular items that are fresh, maybe those items that are in season right now, like potatoes or root vegetables, squash or potatoes that you could pick up. They're inexpensive because they're abundant and they're versatile in a lot of different recipes. Now, other things that you can do if you want to take the prep work out of all that slicing and dicing that you have to do in the kitchen, you could also pick up the prepared vegetables right in Giant. So here we have an example of the cubed butternut squash. It's easy, ready to go, and this could be a great option for a roasted vegetable recipe at your next holiday get-together. So lots of wonderful options. Other things that you can do, nothing like roasted vegetables or Brussels sprouts. Oh, they're wonderful, one of my favorites for the holidays. Or if you were looking for an appetizer to bring, pick up one of the veggie or fruit trays that are already ready to go. It's a great way to have something crunchy, and you can pair it with a dip or a hummus, and that way you have a nice appetizer. Now, other wonderful things too, if you're looking for salad greens, you can pick up a salad kit that's all ready to go. Here we have the tangerine crunch with cranberries. You can even add some roasted sweet potatoes or squash to this for a warm salad meal. So there's lots of different options. And then, of course, don't forget those frozen items. So you might have the rice cauliflower you could add to a dish, or you could add to your mashed potatoes to help lessen the calories. Lots of different options. And of course, you have your canned goods as well. So canned vegetables, tomatoes, green beans. And if you're concerned about the sodium, you can opt for the no added salt variety. So definitely think about how many side dishes you can add this year that have more produce in them. Now, another thing we want to think about as we are building our meals and shopping for the holiday season, we're going to have lots of different grains. We might have appetizers, we might be doing some baking, we might have some muffins. And this is another great area where we can use those swap-portunities or those other ingredients to really boost up a recipe. And so these are easy, and most of the time your guests or any of your people at your party, they won't notice the difference. So when you're thinking about doing some holiday baking, maybe consider adding some whole wheat flour to the recipe if it calls for enriched flour, just to help increase that fiber a bit. Or one other great option if you're making muffins, or we usually make pancakes on Christmas morning, you could use the Kodiak cake pancake mix that has more fiber and protein. And so you get a pretty tasty meal that's more nutrient dense. You could also use this for muffins or for bread. So those quick swaps can make a huge difference. Now, other things you can think about, maybe you're making stuffing, one of my favorites. Maybe we could use, instead of a white bread, we could use a whole wheat bread. Dave's Killer Bread is a great option that actually has heart-healthy fats and more fiber. Now, also too, if you're making any other side dishes, maybe it's a rice dish, think about swapping out any white rice for maybe brown rice or wild rice or even quinoa. And we have these heat and eat packs. You just pop in the microwave and it's a great quick meal. One of my favorite stuffing recipes also calls for brown rice or wild rice. So you could use a swap and add that to your recipe for a good addition of that fiber and protein. Now, other things that are popular right now when we think about appetizers and get-togethers, charcuterie boards are quite popular. And so when we think about those, we usually have a cracker on them per se. So a great option you could use would be a whole wheat cracker like Triscuit. Crunchy and satisfying. These are the hint of salt variety, but there's also other flavors like avocado and cilantro. There's really something for everyone. So no matter whether you're adding this to a recipe or an appetizer, you can really easily add in those whole grains throughout all of your different recipe options. All right, now as we're traveling through the store, we know that proteins are going to be pretty popular during the holiday season, and there's truly something for everyone when it comes to proteins. Now, many of us think of animal protein, chicken or fish or beef, but there's actually a lot of different options available for your holiday meals. And again, this is another area where you can swap things out to lower saturated fat, but also have a good amount of protein. So as I mentioned earlier, think about any of those dairy products you might have in a recipe. Maybe instead of using whole milk, you can use reduced fat milk like the Fairlife or the reduced fat or plain Greek yogurt as a way to get that creaminess without all the fat. Now, other things, think about the lean cuts of meat. Generally, we have turkey for Thanksgiving, but we could also do a lean chicken breast or even a turkey breast as well during the holidays. Now, we also have a big trend of these plant-based proteins that are brewing. If anyone's tried them, let me know in the chat. Things like Beyond Burger or Impossible Burger. And there's actually some fun things like Tofurkey that's available during the holiday season. That's the plant-based turkey item for a nice swap for your turkey. So there's lots of things that you can do during the holiday season. So just think about ways that you can reduce that saturated fat. So for instance, if you have a recipe that calls for ground meat, instead of using ground beef, could you use ground chicken or turkey? It's a leaner cut or has a higher percentage of protein. Maybe it's 90% lean and that's less saturated fat. Now, other things too, if you're doing any kind of soups or anything during the holidays, think about adding beans. That's a great way to boost the protein and fiber and still have a tasty meal. All right, and then lastly, as we're traveling through the store, we want to think about heart-healthy fats. Now, with the holiday season, we might have goodies like cookies and so forth that might use butter. And sometimes those recipes, the easiest is to follow the recipe. But if you're doing any other cooking, there's some good swap opportunities that you can use. So for instance, maybe if I made some roasted Brussels sprouts, I could sprinkle some walnuts on them for some extra crunch and some heart-healthy fats. Or I could add some olive oil or avocado oil to my roasted dishes to help boost those heart healthy fats. Or if I'm making cookies, I could add some peanut butter or almond butter to help boost the protein and give flavor, and maybe omit another ingredient. So there's lots of things that we can do to add those healthy fats in during the holidays. And if you're looking for an appetizer, you can't go wrong with guacamole. So lots of things that you can think about when you're shopping this season. Think about how I can add, not take away from my recipes. All right. And definitely, I want to hear from you guys. What are some of your favorite ingredients, or maybe healthier ingredients, that you like to put into your cart? If you have any that I didn't mention, let me know. Throw it into the chat. I'd love to hear what your items are. All right, so let's actually finish up in the kitchen and sort of put everything together as we move forward during this holiday season. So as I mentioned earlier, one strategy we can use is the USDA MyPlate. So I mentioned this earlier, but this is a great visual. So here is just a wonderful reminder about how to build your plate on holidays and then actually any day of the year. So this helps create balance and portion control, and it helps you realize if you're missing any food groups with your meals. So when you're putting together your holiday recipe spread or your meals during the week, use this as that reminder. So half plate produce, a quarter grains, ideally those whole grains for more fiber and protein, and then opt for those lean protein options, which you might get from plant or animal-based products, and even your dairy. So definitely this is a helpful tool any day of the year. Now, a couple things that you can do to help prepare your holiday party or your get together. If you're doing any hosting, here's a couple strategies that you can use to have wonderful dishes, but a little bit better for your guests. So when you think about your holiday spread, try to offer more side dishes that are vegetable or fruit based. Maybe it's adding things like roasted vegetables, carrots, or asparagus. Maybe having 3 or 4 side dishes rather than just one. And there's always a healthier way or a better for you way to make those different recipes. So always look for those opportunities where you can change those ingredients. Like I said, with the evaporated milk, from whole milk to fat-free, you won't notice the difference. And then also too, if you're having any beverages at your party, there are lots of great ways that you can have low-calorie beverages that are quite tasty without all those calories. So here are 3 examples of some easy ways that you can add veggies to your meals. And one of them is one of my absolute favorites. So I mentioned Brussels sprouts early, but you can have a wonderful medley of Brussels sprouts with sweet potatoes. So the one on the bottom right or bottom left is one of my favorite recipes. And again, you can use this as a way to add another vegetable. You could even add some different ingredients, walnuts or even cranberries to this for some additional flavor. So roasted vegetables could be a great option, or even roasted acorn squash, or a green bean casserole, or a better for you green bean casserole. So these could be some great additions to your meal. And then, like I mentioned, those low calorie drinks. Now, 1 glass of wine may have 100 to 150 calories. And if we multiply that by a few glasses of wine, or maybe we have some eggnog or other beverages, those liquid calories can add up really, really fast. So there's some great options to help reduce those caloric beverages. So think about making a fruit-infused water. Here on the screen, we have some great examples of how to make a flavorful beverage that's lower in calories and has all the flavors of the season. So you could use, hot tea. Some people will make an infused tea with like a cranberry tea bag with mint or other items that way you have that flavor without all those calories. Or you could do a hot tea as well. You could also use unsweetened tea or those seltzer or carbonated waters for a mocktail, so to speak. and other items as well. I know we have that favorite eggnog, but as I mentioned earlier, there are some lower calorie options available, like the Khalifa Farms almond milk eggnog, which has the flavor with less calories and fat. So even just thinking about what are some easy changes that I can make maybe in 1 or 2 areas for your holiday get together, and that can make all the difference. All right, now this is a great way to plan a buffet at your party. And actually, one of my coworkers a few years ago shared this with me, and I thought this is ingenious. So one thing that you can do if you're planning a meal for your family, or again, a get together, use MyPlate as a way to divide your table. And this is ingenious. So you want to break down the table like it is on the MyPlate. Remember, a big portion of the plate are produce items. So make half of that table fruits and vegetables. So you can fill up on all those wonderful side dishes like the Brussels sprouts, acorn squash, and green beans, you name it. And then you can make a quarter of your table or your buffet a type of protein, and then that last quarter grains. So this is a great way to figure out how to get all those wonderful dishes on your table, but be healthier for your guests. All right. Now, another question that happens frequently, cooking inspiration. What am I going to make for the holidays? Where do I find some better for you recipes? And there are so many options available. Of course, one of my favorites is the Giant Savory Magazine. It's available in store right now. This one we have on the slide is our current edition for fall flavors. It's a wonderful way to get some inspiration on new recipes, so trying something new or a new spin on an old favorite. So I highly recommend picking up a Savory Magazine if you're in store, or if you like to look at it online, just visit giantfood.com and you can actually look at the digital copy of the Savory Magazine. Now, we also have our cooking website, our giantfood.com. We have our wonderful Savory database where you can find lots of wonderful recipes. But if you have a cell phone or a computer, there are so many resources available to find better for you recipes that are quite tasty. And also there are lots of cooking websites that do a healthier spin on an old favorite. So for instance, one of my favorite cookbooks growing up was Cooking Light. And so actually our favorite sweet potato casserole recipe is a lighter version of an old favorite, and that came from cookinglight.com. So it's a great way to get some wonderful recipes that are a little bit better for you. So definitely check out your favorite cooking websites, blogs, you name it, where you can find some great options.
Melanie, we have 2 questions.
Oh, go ahead, please.
So one, how about better for you desserts? Do you have any suggestions?
Absolutely. So when you're thinking about your desserts, whether it's pie or cookies, you can think about how can we make some swaps. So for instance, a great place to start with any of your goodies, think about the amount of sugar that you're using. You can actually reduce the sugar in your recipe. Every quarter cup is roughly about 170 calories, give or take. And so even if you reduce the amount of sugar in your dessert recipes, you'll still have the flavor, but you won't actually notice the difference in the sweetness. So that's one place where you can start. Other things could be using healthier fats. So for instance, if items call for butter or oil, you can use substitutions like applesauce as a way to cut the fat. Also, you can add in things like oatmeal or whole wheat flour to help give a little bit more boost of nutrients. Also, like examples for pie. Pie. I can't believe it's pie season. So think about making a crustless pie. That way you save a lot of calories and saturated fat, like a crustless pumpkin pie. That's one example. Or definitely you could use less pie crust to save on the total fat. Or even another great option that you can do is figure out how you could do individual smaller portions rather than that large portion. So for instance, instead of a large, let's say like pumpkin cheesecake, could we make individual itty bitty size muffins or the standard muffin tin size instead of that large cheesecake. That way you have built-in portion control. So those are a couple methods that you can do when it comes to desserts. And there's definitely a lot of creativity with recipes. You can also use things like, as an egg replacement, you can use flax seeds as an option as well too. So if you're looking for anything in particular, there's probably a recipe out there that's a little bit healthier for you. So those are a couple options you can do for desserts.
Those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
I like putting oats in my cookies.
Oh, and it gives it a little bit more body. And, that's a great place where you can sort of do a little bit of experimentation with your recipes. Though I always do caution people, if you're trialing for the first time, maybe do like a practice batch and see how those adjustments work out for you.
Yeah, baking is hard.
Yes, from experience.
All right, the other question we have is, what is the nutritional differences, if any, between chicken broth and bone broth?
So they're really going to be very, very similar. I would say overall, they're going to be low calorie options for you. The bone broth might have a bit of a deeper flavor, a little bit more of a flavorful profile. The other consideration would be the sodium content. So if you're looking to sort of give an extra oomph for your recipes, you could use the bone broth. I would just compare the recipe or the ingredients, the nutrition facts panel, and just see if that works for your wellness goals. But definitely you can use them interchangeably as well. So for instance, if a recipe called for one and you only had another kind, you could definitely swap them out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great
That's all we
question.
have right now in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Well, before we get into any final questions, just a little bit about what we do at Giant. So we have a whole team of nutritionists. There are 10 of us at Giant, and all of our services are free, which is great. One of my favorite words. So we have lots of services to help you meet your needs, whether it's shopping for the holidays, planning for the holidays, or really just thinking about things about managing your diabetes or your heart health or your weight. So we offer free consultations online or by phone, and you can follow up as frequently as you would like. We also have a lot of online classes available each week on our website at giantfood.com. Things about mindful eating, holiday eating strategies as well, and then other tips on heart health and living sustainably. So lots of resources there. And then I invite everyone today, if you're on social media, join our Healthy Living by Giant Facebook group. This is a great way to find some wonderful inspiration for meals and the holidays, and even looking into the new year. So you get to know all of our nutritionists, and they're all very creative when it comes to their favorite foods and recipes too. So I highly recommend. And then lastly, on our website, again at giantfood.com, we have our Nutrition Made Easy podcast. So another great resource. One of my favorites in the series is our Try Something New podcast. And those come out quarterly every season we have a new edition. So if you're looking for something new or maybe something different for the holidays or just your general meals, I highly recommend those episodes. So just a few things that we have available at Giant. So I'm actually going to stop there, and I'm going to open it up if anyone has any questions. I'd love to hear from people in the audience. Or if you want to share like any of your favorite recipes or any of the little tips and tricks that you do during the holidays, let us know. I'd always love to hear what people are doing. All right. If no questions, we'll give it another few seconds. If you don't have any questions, I will turn it back over to Julia. Awesome. Thanks, Katrina. Carolyn, great question. So sweet potato casserole. So this is one of my absolute favorites when it comes to the holidays. I always joke that you can leave everything else at Thanksgiving, but leave me the sweet potato casserole. So a couple things that you can do. So generally it calls for our sweet potatoes, maybe it's brown sugar, maybe it's toasted pecans, maybe maple syrup. So what you can do, you can use the fat-free evaporated milk to help with the creaminess. Also, you can decrease the amount of sugar that you use and or any other sweeteners. So I highly recommend the cookinglight.com. They have a wonderful better for you sweet potato recipe, and that's our go-to at my family's house. So think about, more of the potatoes rather than all those additional items. I know the mini marshmallows are popular as well too. So that's an easy way to kind of lighten up the sweet potato casserole. Great question. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right, so I'll turn it over either to Julia or Delaney, who can help finish us up for the evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Melanie. I know it's crazy to think that we're entering the holiday season, but it's here.
Where did the year go? I can't believe it.
I know. It's my favorite time of the year, so I'm okay with it. Thank you all so much for attending this evening. Before we leave, we have a couple announcements. We want your feedback on tonight's session. So after tonight, an email will come out. If you complete a survey within 24 hours of that email, you will be entered into a drawing for a $25 gift card. Woohoo! And program recordings are available upon request. You can just let myself know. I'll be the one sending the email. And next week, we're continuing our Healthy Holiday series. So we have another workshop next Tuesday night, November 9th from 6 to 7. And this one is titled Check the Technique, which will discuss how the nutritional content of your meals can be changed based on how it's cooked. So I'm looking forward to that one. Thank you all so much for attending. Have a great night.
Thank you for joining us for this virtual healthy holiday nutrition series. For more videos to help you make healthier choices, visit the Department of Parks and Recreation's online resource center at pgparks.com or the Health and Wellness Virtual Library at wellness.pgparks.com. Until next time, be healthy, be well.